everybody. This is Martin John, and I'm here presenting Tao of the Day. What is Tao of the Day? Well, it is all about the Tao Te Ching. Um, the Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written about 600 BCE, and it is full of enigmatic sort of wisdom all around living a more reasonable life. What do I mean by live a reasonable life? Well, it means that you don't ask the world or other people to change so that you can be comfortable. You can't ask the snow to stop snowing or the cold to stop colding just because it makes you uncomfortable. This is, Win Hof. He goes out and sits in the cold and goes into cold baths and meditates in cold rivers and all of these sorts of things because there is the ability to not have to ask the world to change for us, right? That ability is innate within us. Wim Hof does it because he can, and he has tapped into not worrying so much about being comfortable, but worrying more about him, his body, and not worrying at all, really, just like being in his body. See, Wim Hof allows himself to live a reasonable life because he doesn't have to warm up. He has the ability to warm up within him, just like we have the ability to do all of this other stuff. And so, like, live with our family or deal with a crabby, nosy neighbor. Like, we have that power within us, and that power is expressed deeply within ourselves. And that's where Tao exists. Like going without food, going extended periods in cold, going without sleep, going without these things can happen. And you can survive just fine unless you're stressed about it, unless you're worried about it, unless you're not comfortable in that state. And that's what living a reasonable life is all about. If you want to live a reasonable life, what you're going to do is you're going to allow yourself to let the world be as it is without asking it to change, without having requests of the world. You are going to be able to live your experience without having to have the world change for you. And that's what it means to live a reasonable life. Now, yes, you are the consciousness of all things, and you are in a body, and this body has, limits, but those limits are made by you. And so when we start talking about what is living a reasonable life, and are we a victim of something? You're not a victim of the cold. You're a victim of your mind. And when you rely on your mind to victimize you and to experience your surroundings, well, then you're not being you truly. All you're doing is being you as a victim. All you're doing is being you as this identity that you are holding on to. But that's not who you are. You are much more than that. You have always been much more than that. You will always be much more than that. And so when we look at the Tao, when we look at Brahman, when we look at Tao, we start saying, well, who are we? And not in terms of the identity, but who are we in the grand scheme? And so this is what we do when we start talking about recovering yourself, about doing what we're put here to do, and that's receive. That's receive and yield. I've always looked at existence from both the infinitely small and the infinitely large. And what I sort of like look at is like, you want to be, independent, and you want to be an individual, and you want to be different, and you want to go about your life and, have all the things. Imagine if you had a cell in your body that decided it was just going to do what it wanted. What would we call that? If we had a rogue cell that was just going to start doing what it wanted, and it's going to start replicating faster and doing all of this stuff, what we call that is cancer. That's what cancer is. Cancer is this experience of a cell going rogue. and it's unhealthy, and it kills the system, right? It will ultimately, like like we will die, right? I mean, we can eradicate it, but it often takes, I mean, especially in modern medicine, it takes quite a bit to eradicate cancer, right? But cancer is a cell that has decided to go rogue and to do what it wants to do, not to follow the script of the body. That's what you do when you don't surrender to Tao. That's what you do when you don't surrender to the moment. Want to when you want to simply be your individual independent person, what you do is you go against the grain, and life is difficult and life is hard. And now we are born and integrated into going against the grain, not trusting our intuition, not trusting our bodies. We are under the influence of our parents and then teachers and the society we live in and all of that. And that's why I talk about the Tao Te Ching, because the Tao Te Ching is all about living a more reasonable life. And if you can live a more reasonable life today than you did yesterday, you're on a path to living a real, reasonable life and being in touch with that which is always with you, Tao, without turning your back on it and trusting your mind and body. Your mind and body have very little to offer you. They can help you kind of move about, but if we look at people like Wim Hof, if we look at people that have overcome, we look at monks who have overcome physical things, we know that the body is capable of a whole lot more than we've ever given it credit for. Right? And this is what living a reasonable life is. Not asking the world to change for us. Wim Hof is not asking the cold to change for him because it's uncomfortable. He is changing so that he can see that he can overcome the cold. Within every cell is a power to make a universe. And if you get cold and have to put on a sweater, well, why aren't we utilizing that energy? And this is what it means to live a reasonable life. You have been given life. And if we simply use that life to be a victim to everything that comes about, well, I think we're wasting a lot of what we were given, if not all of it. I mean, we really need to be able to understand that this is an amazing gift. And it is being supported. It isn't a gift that you're being left in the lurch with. You know, a lot of people I've talked to, one person in particular I've talked to recently has been more like, I didn't get this. I didn't ask to be given this. And it's like, well, you did at some point. So, but we can put that aside. But all we have to do is surrender to it. And it is supported and sustained in beautiful, amazing ways. But too many people want to just be the victim, want to victimize themselves, want to be the victim too. And in doing that, they get all caught up in the idea of what it looks like right now. And that can be very difficult. And so when we start talking about the Tao, we start talking about how do you live a reasonable life? If Wim Hof can be in ice cold water for hours or nights or whatever, like, what can we do? What else is our body capable of? Our bodies aren't here to be the victims of anything. Our bodies are capable of so much. And when we can experience that, and when we can be in that space of allowing ourselves to have a grip on what's possible, then we get to have ourselves, like our true selves, not identities of people who want to like, not the identity of like, oh, I'm a businessman, or I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a mother, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm an identity. Those identities are only holding you back. They have nothing to do with who you are and what's possible. And yet we hold on to them so tightly. We think that, oh, this identity is who I am. But like when we look at the Tao, we start looking at like what is this moment? Like so many people want to just jump into fear, like, oh, you can't go outside naked when it's freezing out. Well, Wim Hof can, so why can't you? And this is what we talk about when we say don't let the world affect who you are. Don't not go somewhere because of weather. Go out in it and see what the world has for you. Now, if you go out in it in fear, and if you go out in it just to prove me wrong, well, then you're really, you're really, setting yourself up for failure. And you don't want to do that, right? We don't want to set ourselves up for failure. Julie's gonna join me as I. You know what I'm doing, Julie? I'm making a spot of tea.
Oh, I turned up at the right time.
Yeah.
I'll have
Well,
two
I'm
sugars,
making.
please.
I'm making in my world I make kombucha.
What
Do you know
is that?
kombucha is a fermented tea. So because of
Sounds
my
good.
because of my my it's part of my MS stuff and whatnot. But kombucha is so you make a sweet tea,
Yeah.
and in it, have you ever made vinegar?
No.
No. Okay. Well, in the process of making fermented things like vinegar or kombucha, you need a starter. So, have you ever made sourdough?
No. God, I
No.
haven't made a
Okay.
lot, have I? Crikey. So many
So
things I
all
haven't
of
done
these are
yet.
fermented things. All of these are
Okay.
like sourdough is a fermented bread. Um, Kombucha is a fermented tea.
Is
Kefir
it
is a
like
fermented.
brewing then? Would it be
What's
like
that?
brewing? Like brewing?
Yeah, it's there is some similarities between like brewing beer because
Yeah.
that's a fermented beverage, and all alcohol is fermented.
Well, Brad
Um,
used to make a stout, so I'm kind of
oh yeah,
thinking
okay.
along those lines.
So same exact principle. What I do is I make a tea. I make a sweet tea. So for every gallon or so, I put in a cup of sugar,
Yeah.
and the sugar feeds the SCOBY, and the SCOBY is like the starter. And a SCOBY, SCOBY, stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast.
Yes, I was going to say it's yeast somewhere in there.
Yeah,
Somewhere in
yeah,
there, you
yeah.
are feeding yeast,
Right.
which
And
then
so
does something.
yeah, so I mean I make my own sauerkraut and ferment and lacto fermented
Hang on, what
vegetables.
did you say, Brad? Yeah, yeah, sugar. It changes the sugar, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So it eats the sugar, and the waste product is, something akin to vinegar. But I do have a vinegar mother. So
Yeah,
vinegar and kombucha use different kinds of starters. A vinegar uses a mother, and a kombucha uses a SCOBY. But the results, if you leave the kombucha too long, it'll taste very vinegary.
right.
Yeah.
So it's a timing thing. It's about
Yeah,
being
it
observant
takes like
then.
10 days. It takes like 10 days, but I have
So
a
what what
constant
what
thing.
does it do then? So you make this tea, then when you have it, I know this is right off the subject. I'll come back
Oh,
if
please, yeah,
that's okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I'm curious, and you
Hmm.
know me and my curiosity. So
So
you make the
probiotic.
tea,
It's about
yeah.
healthy gut.
Right, I
Yeah.
get it. Thank
So
you.
so all of that bacteria that's in there, and once you create a positive environment, the bad bacteria can't grow.
That's right.
So, right. So that's the same thing with like that's why people would, drink whiskey, rum and rather than drinking water, they used to drink because the water was always contaminated back in the day, right? Like so
Yeah,
they would always drink alcohol.
rum used to be a certain percentage, so that Brad was telling me about this the other day on ships.
Yeah.
The percentage of the rum was so that it wouldn't ignite, I think, if there was a...
Yeah, it was watered down,
Yeah,
but it was still
a
very
cleanser.
alcoholic because you had to make sure that the water was drinkable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it kill off everything, basically, yeah.
Yep.
Which brings me to Brad's wonderful video that he did on River Tramps, where the episode is called Dentist.
Oh,
He uses a swig of this whiskey to,
wow.
to help with the pain of this
Yeah.
tooth, and obviously to get rid of the bacteria. But the result was quite hilarious. Flipping heck, crikey, he said, crikey. But yeah, so same thing. But
Yeah,
yeah, so I
so
will
I'm
have
making
some tea.
yeah, I'm making my sweet tea at the moment, and I got about 3 gallons currently fermenting, and I'll add this to it. And they're in different stages. A couple are bottled, a couple are in second fermentation, and then this will be a this will be like like a starter. So I just have it constantly brewing and just going.
That's
So
me, constantly brewing.
that's right.
That is an explanation of my experience,
Yeah,
constantly brewing
that's
in various stages, all at the same time. Oh, lovely. Thank you very much for explaining that to me, because I
oh,
didn't know.
absolutely,
So
yeah, yeah.
got a bit
Well,
of information.
if you I've sent scobies. I haven't sent them overseas though. So if that's ever something that you'd be interested in exploring, I can send a little SCOBY your way, and you can that way you don't have to, like, making a SCOBY is like taking fruit, letting it go bad, and doing all this stuff to kind of get a proper
Yeast.
healthy SCOBY.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, I just keep creating them. So like, I just put them in my garden and let the worms eat them, and it's good for it's. I put it in my cat food. I eat them. I dry them. I just have them, so
That's
they just
pretty amazing.
keep coming. So,
There's
and
so
they're
much
so
about
good.
you that I don't know. You are forever going to be interesting to me. I like the fact that you don't give it me all in one go either. Keeps
I
me...
can't imagine that. I didn't, like, I'm not keeping anything from you. Let me tell you
No, no, I
that.
know. It's just that there's always something wonderful to learn about you.
Yeah, I'm
It's
always,
wonderful. It's lovely.
and I attribute that to a lot of, when I was younger, I always, like, being special was something that I didn't think I could ever be, right? So I was never good in school. I never kind of fit in, all of these things. And all of those things really kind of contributed to my
To you
just,
being who you are now.
yeah,
Yes.
contributed to my, like, intense curiosity of doing stuff. It's
Yes.
just like, I remember getting upset at kids in school who were like, is it going to be on the test? I was like, who cares if it's going to be on the test? Just learn it. And
Skimmers.
that's,
I
what's that?
call them skimmers. People who say, look,
Yeah.
if it's not on a test, I don't need to know about it. But if it's on the test, I definitely do, because I can answer that then, and I can skim.
Right.
I can
And that's
skim. I
all I
don't
need.
have to be totally involved. I can just skim.
And I didn't care for school, so I wasn't very good at it. But as when I got out of school and I found that I had intrinsic interest in things,
Yes.
I've always had interest in food. And so food and drink and all of this sort of stuff really just kind of came to me over time, and it's something that I've learned about. And people like cooks have asked me, how did you learn this? And I was like, I don't know, I just did it. And it's just like, this is stuff like chefs have to go to school to learn.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't
And
it,
I'm
when
like,
you...
I don't know. Like, it's like, it just makes sense because I cook so much. So you trial and error and stuff. You just learn
Yeah,
these things. And
that's it.
it's just like, I don't know what made me so awesome, but it's turned out pretty great.
Quality, I love that. I don't know what made me so awesome, but I just am, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, That's right.
Wonderful. Oh, I love that so much.
All right, let's find a
Anyway,
number.
yeah, I was going to say we need to get to a number. I think today it's going to be number 63.
Wow, funny. I looked at 36 and I was like, it's going to be 36. And you said 63. So here we are at 63.
It's
Be
because it's coming
still.
backwards on your phone. That's
I
why.
know. Yeah. It just hit me.
Anyway, carry on.
Be
Sorry.
still. Be still, and you will act without doing. Be still, and your work will happen regularly. Be still, and your senses will engage the subtle. Similarly, engage the stranger as the multitude, and see the majesty of a mountain range in a grain of sand. The master knows greatness cannot be grasped. Remaining still, she allows greatness to flow through her. With no desire to achieve it, her stillness guides her. Making subtle movements, the difficult seems easy. She knows that all of life is not without its problems, so problems turn out to be no problem at all.
That is lovely.
The thing that I like about, there's always these parts that pop out at me. It's like with no desire to achieve it. So this is all about greatness, right? Like the first section, be still and you will act without doing. Be still and your work will happen regularly. Be still and your senses will engage the subtle. Similarly, engage a stranger as the multitude. See the majesty of the mountain in a grain of sand. All of that talks about being humble. Be still and you will act without doing. There's no plan. You will just it just
It will
arises.
unfold. Yeah.
Yeah. Similarly, engage a stranger as the multitude. So many people are like, I've worked with people who, if the audience isn't big, they don't show up professionally. They just want to, oh, well, there's not a lot of people here, so it doesn't matter. It's like, no, every interaction you do should be done as if this is the one that
Yeah, it
matters.
all matters. It
That's right.
all matters. Every single interaction matters because there's something there.
And for me at least, your picking this number resembles or relates so much to what we were talking about me, about me, like having to come to a place of humility, having to come to a place of understanding that, like, I'm not special in the world, so I have to do these things to gain that. And eventually I realized that I was special just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And there are times where, with no desire to achieve it, and it's talking about greatness here, with no desire to achieve greatness, her stillness guides her. Making subtle movements, the difficult becomes easy. You don't have a desire to have a destination. The moment you have a destination in mind, you want to get there. Not you
Yeah.
personally, maybe, but
Yeah.
it's oftentimes, if you want
Yeah,
to.
I get that. I get that. It's you are setting yourself the final point of the journey. So therefore, if you are focusing on the destination, maybe you're not noticing the things along the way.
And I want to talk about, like the idea that, like I know you vape, and there's like a
Yes.
destination in your mind to not vape. And
Yes.
so there's that destination gets you out of seeing the progress you're making elsewhere and in that journey, because that journey, like I always like to say, you're going to do it until you don't.
That's it. I've adopted that
you
actually.
know and so, like, but having a destination of not doing it keeps you focused on doing it.
That's right. It does.
But when we can kind of embrace that, yep, you're going to do it till you don't. Do I do it now? Well, looks like I do. Okay, move on. you know but
Yeah.
then but that's
I
the
have.
thing. When you make those subtle movements to just ask that question, The
Just
difficult seems
noticing
easy.
it.
Yep,
Yeah,
just
just
noticing it.
noticing that I'm doing it is on the way. It's part of the journey.
That's right. And without the judgment, what ends up happening is the difficult seems easy. Like all of a sudden, one day, maybe you'll look back and say, "Wow, remember how it was so hard to quit? But now I don't even
Mm,
want it at all." Maybe, like maybe that's not part of the plan. But maybe the plan is just to be here and love yourself in this space where that's still happening.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
like this one.
Subtle movements that maybe would be something along the lines of just holding it in my hand, but not
Yeah.
actually using it. That's another thing that started happening much more.
Yeah.
I just noticed that. That's good. That's fine.
Yeah. Look, that's where I am. Look at this.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's stillness guiding you, right?
Yeah.
You're allowing that stillness to guide you. And then she knows that all of life is not without its problems. So problems turn out to be, if you know that there's going to be a problem in the wake of something, if you know that there are problems, then you're not gonna worry about trying to identify them all. When you recognize that, yeah, things are gonna happen. I'm here trying to fucking jack up my house. Do I think that problems are gonna arise? Yes, I do. Did you want to come back up? I don't. What's up, Bubba? I did bring you back up. So either way, when we look at the world and we say, look, there are problems in the world. Yes. But we don't look at them as problems. We don't identify them as problems. We just like approach them. I wrote some notes on this. I think it was yesterday. So we have these first three sections: be still and you will act without doing. Be still and your work will happen regularly. Be still and your senses will engage the subtle. And my notes say, being still often yields to doing something without the need of thinking about it. Being still often yields to doing something without the need of thinking about it. Meaning, when you sit still, when you sit, like if you sit in your chair and just stop doing everything, within an hour, I promise you, you will notice that you are doing something. You might have gotten up and gone to the store. You might have gotten up and started to do the dishes. You might have gotten up to polish your shoes. But being still will yield to doing something. When we are still in both the mind and body, we accomplish many things because we're 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 focused on the awareness that we hold. When we get up and act simply without complexity, we get up and act simply and without complexity. It's not like you don't think about it. You don't stop and you don't say like, "Oh, I'm gonna do the dishes. Oh, I gotta do the dishes. I gotta do so many dishes. Other people put them in there, and I gotta wash them. I'm always washing dishes." Da, 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 da. But if you were able to be still, and then it just open up to that would get rid of the complexity around it.
Hurrah! I've arrived.
You have
Patience, you
arrived.
see.
Yeah.
Subtle
Yeah.
subtleties.
Stillness. I want to be still. I want to be still. So yeah. So this one, I went back and started looking at like the stillness again, and the stillness is a big part of, when you're still, because when we, I was just talking about doing dishes, just really
Mm.
briefly. If you have to do dishes, it's in your mind, and you're like, oh, Brad's put his dishes in there and I had all the dishes done, and like it's somebody else's dishes, and it's this and it's that, and it's like, oh, I'm always doing dishes or whatever, right? Like you can see that that's not still. There's no stillness there.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then when we
It's
can sit and be still, go on.
Well, the thing is the way I think about it is when I am thinking or something along the lines of, oh, the dishes are there, I'm doing a job twice.
That's right.
I don't want to be doing a job twice. They'll get done when the time comes for them to be done.
That's right. And
So
they'll get done. And it often happens, I've found, that the more still I am, the more they
someone
get
else
done
does the
without me.
dishes. It bothers you do the dishes.
That's not the direction I was going. But yes, that happens as well. Because the more still we are, the more things get done without our thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know, like I find myself finishing up dishes before I even thought about doing them.
Yeah. My feet will walk towards that direction.
Yeah.
My hand will turn the tap on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, that's how things get done, really, for me. I don't want to spend that extra energy thinking about something.
Right.
It will happen when it happens, and I can enjoy that. I can embrace it then in a silent peacefulness. I can feel the warmth of the water on my hands. I can see the gleaming dishes as they appear on the draining board with the help of my hand. That's what I can enjoy whilst I'm doing
Yeah.
the dishes, rather than thinking about them. That's the job done. And then I've got this feeling of, ugh, why?
Yeah. Right. And then it just pushes you further and further away. You know, I mean, I, just like everybody, I struggle with my own pacifiers and stuff. And when I
So
see
do
them,
I.
there's weight to them, and there's not stillness around it. And when I can get to a place of, and I see the subtle movement towards this place always. And I know it's getting closer and closer and closer, but I have to be able to let go of the destination and just accept it as it
Yeah.
is. Um, and like this line, the master knows greatness can't be grasped. And that's what we try and do. It's like greatness is, well, having clean dishes or going to sleep at a reasonable hour and waking up early and exercising and all of these things. These are all the things that are great. And, well, I better go ahead and do those things so that I can be great. I got to journal every morning. I got to do these things, but maybe not.
I can compete. I can
Right.
compete.
Right.
That's
Even
the word
even
that
though there's
comes up. Yeah.
no one else competing, this is in my mind what would be
Yes.
great. Right?
Yeah.
The master knows greatness cannot be grasped. So remaining still, she allows greatness to flow through her. There's greatness everywhere around us, within us. It is the only thing that we possess is greatness, right? Like, and all we have to do is allow that to come through. Every time we interfere, we're making it more difficult for ourselves.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Definitely. It's for me. It's about where I focus. Sometimes I focus on things that are really not necessary. So when I sit in that silence, I'm no longer focusing, and things come to me.
Right.
Things come to me, and that's wonderful.
I was, speaking of things coming to me or things coming to us, like I got this house and then I got a gig that helped me pay for the house. And now there happens to be a, like a director of education position opening up that that a number of people that I know are going to put my name in for. And so I might have like a real like director position that'll
Cool.
pay me, and I can have like a gig that I can do, and that might help me fund the app and stuff, and me putting the app aside like a couple months ago because I was overwhelmed. All of that was just stillness. All of that
Yes.
was just like, don't involve yourself in the process. Just let it come to you. And here I am, just letting it come. Will it happen? I don't know. And do I care? I don't know. Like, it's all just going to happen as it does. It's going to unfold. And here I am.
Yeah, and there I come back to that word I don't care again, which is great.
Yeah.
Because you can just, if you're not putting out that I care, then you
It's
can
got to be
allow
this
to
way.
receive. Yeah, there's a difference about caring and receiving.
That's right.
Receiving is nice. It helps with your growth. It helps then with your growth, helps someone else's growth, and it just goes that way. And so you're giving back anyway, and you are caring by allowing. That's the
Yeah.
point.
Like, it's interesting that just the image of receiving, like a gift. If it's your birthday and you care, and somebody doesn't bring you a card or a gift or money or something, you're going to be muffed. You know, you're going to be miffed about that. But if you don't care and, you know, like maybe it doesn't even have to be your birthday, maybe it's just anything, and somebody gives you a gift, like, can you receive that? Or is your first response, oh, you didn't have to do that, rather than thank you? You know,
Yeah.
I, I know someone who's constantly, you didn't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You
Yeah,
don't have to do that.
I had to work at that massively. I
And
had
it's like,
to work at that massively. Yeah.
stop telling me I don't have to do that. I know I don't have to do that. Like, would you, and then receiving is the work.
Yeah. It is, because then you're allowing someone else an action. You're not depriving someone of an action that they would like to do.
Yeah. And
But
if
it's
they
their
think they
will.
have
Yeah.
to do it, whose problem is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it's my birthday, this is what I do, and I do this for myself. It doesn't matter where I am. I celebrate the day. I sit there for what's 5 seconds in that 24-hour period. I sit there and I say, happy birthday, me. And I just celebrate the fact that I've got there.
Yeah.
I just, with gratitude, that's it. And I get really excited in that gratitude. I go, oh, yes, I made it to 55. Oh, it's just absolutely fantastic. And that fills me more than any gift, more than any kind of, you know, card or anything like that. But it doesn't mean to say that I won't allow that as well.
Yeah.
But I've already filled that space with a lot of gratitude that I've got this far. Woohoo!
Yeah.
So yeah, I think sitting and in stillness is a wonderful thing. I really do. And
Yeah. And
it's,
that's the, you know, like when we start looking at stillness, and what this is saying is that stillness, being still, will remove problems. Because what happens when your mind is rampantly telling stories is you're creating problems.
absolutely, yeah. Yeah,
Because there are no problems. And that's
yeah,
what this last line really kind of drives home. She knows that all of life is not without its problems. So problems turn out to be no problem at all. It's
yeah,
not like you just approach it from stillness rather than like, oh, I knew this would happen. Of course this happens to me. This happens all the time. Like, oh my God, you know, like all of those sorts of things. But no, this isn't wrong. This is a challenge that you're going to face.
it is what it is.
That's right.
And,
And
you know, sometimes I think to myself, just glad for the observation. That's
right.
all. It
So
is what it
grateful.
is.
Right.
Yes.
Grateful to just be able to see this
Yeah.
and then be still within it and be like, oh, is this really a problem? And maybe
Absolutely.
and you know, very often for many people, like they can't see beyond the fact that they think it's a problem. And I understand that. And you may have your stories as to like you might be homeless, you might this, you might that, but the thing is you might. What's happening right now
Is what counts.
is is what's happening right now. And if you
Yeah.
can be still right now, then you have everything that you need to deal with whatever's coming up.
Yeah. You're amazing. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, we
So,
will talk about that project of yours soon.
yes, please. I'm constructing something to send across to you to give
Okay.
you like the gen, you
Yeah.
know, the structure of it.
Yeah.
And
Give
then
me an idea, and I'm
me and you will
excited.
do the space. We're going to be, I can
Yes.
send you across the structure, what's expected of me in a particular way, and then me and you will work with the space. That would
Okay.
be
Yeah. Sounds good.
fantastic.
I would love
And
that.
I really appreciate that too. Thank
Oh
you.
yeah. I love stuff. So
Yay!
yeah.
Take
We'll
care.
talk soon. Love you.
Talk soon. Bye bye. Love you. Bye
Ciao.
bye.
Oh, 63. You know, we read 63 yesterday. I covered 63 yesterday. And so, Julie coming on to talk about 63 again. was really great for me because I did write these notes just yesterday about number 63. Um, yeah, there's a few more notes that I'm going to go over, and if anybody wants to step up and pick a number between 1 and 81, please do. I'm just going to continue kind of chatting about 63 for a little bit. Similarly, engage the stranger as the multitude see the majesty of a mountain range in a grain of sand. You know, because we like movement so much, we like mountains and large crowds, right? Because we can see it, and it's like we can see the skies, and there's majesty in the mountains, and there's like large crowds. We want to affect a lot of people, right? We want large followers, we want all that kind of stuff. um but if we can treat one stranger who has nothing to offer us as we would treat a crowd of people who have our attention, we can consider ourselves honest, right? What I mean by that, what I mean by saying we can consider ourselves honest, is that we're not changing who we are because of what we believe in our minds to be the outcome of one thing, right? If we were talking to a crowd, it's like, oh, I can get a lot of them to buy my book. I can get a lot of them to take my course. But I'm going to talk to a homeless person who can't afford my course, who can't. But can I address that homeless person in the same way that I would address the crowd? And would I show up as a professional in both settings? When in every grain of sand we can see the complexity and majesty of a mountain range, we will be seeing beyond the manifestation. This manifestation, this idea, this experience that you're having is just that. It's just an experience, and it's energetic, and it has nothing really to do with what's actually going on. And so when you can be here and be present without having to get caught up in the manifestation, well, then you've been able to see yourself a bit. The master knows greatness cannot be grasped. Remaining still, she allows greatness to flow through her. She doesn't try to grasp greatness. Greatness is within her, and it will flow through her. And everything she does, like talking to Julie. Julie's, like always learning about like things I do. Like I make sauerkraut and kombucha and all of these things. I've even made yogurt and other things like that. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing that, but it's something that I've done. I did that. My diet was moving in that direction anyway, and then when I got my MS diagnosis, I honed it into something, and it was kind of like the MS was just a way for me to have a direction for my diet, because even though my diet was what it was good, plant strong, and healthy, it it didn't have any structure. And so I had a substance of what my diet was, but then it was able to get put into structure. And now it is something very simple, and I don't think about it much. I don't I set up my house to provide that sort of thing, and when I get rabbits, I'll be able to provide even more to that extent. Daryl's going to join me now. We'll pick a number and see what's going on there. Daryl, it's been a
Hello,
minute. How you
Martin.
doing, man?
Yeah, Martin John. It's great to hear your Mother Earth news lifestyle. Do you ever remember that magazine, the homesteading magazine?
No, I
Yeah.
do.
So there was a thing my dad used to. We lived in the suburbs,
Okay.
and all of that like homesteading, like that you're doing, that kind of like living off the land and doing things like he looked forward like that would be the way to live. And back in those days it was all about, you lived in the suburbs and you did all these kinds of jobs, and that was life, right? And it's like now it's like people are like longing for like what you're doing, and you're telling the story and the journey, and it feels good to hear it coming from you, and to hear the just the stories and the conversations. I just love it.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've never really been interested in like in homesteading as a study. So
Hmm.
I don't know much about it. I just kind of this is just kind of the direction that I'm just kind of tending to go. I remember when I went out to Spain, um, like someone in my family was raising rabbits, and we ate rabbit, and I was like, oh, I can do this. This is easy,
Hmm.
because I don't eat eggs, so I was like, chickens are out. I don't care about eggs. And so that turned into me wanting to raise rabbits, and then it just kind of like evolved in that way.
And that's what it does, right?
Yeah,
Because and it's sort of like it's like giving yourself a new freedom that some people didn't even know existed. I mean, I know you're like in
yeah,
a metro area, and for that, is a contrast. And
yeah.
contrast is beautiful and good. So I just I love to hear that, and I love it when people are wowed by our dynamic nature as human beings. To me, our dynamic nature should be what is accepted first, but a lot of times it is what people are just surprised by. And I was talking earlier in a talk, and I just really think that our mainstream world needs to get more comfortable with allowing more flow to happen and not be embracing things that are breaking that flow of what is supposed to be naturally. And like a lot of things you talk about with the Tao is about a flow that is just natural and so is.
Yeah, like there's truth to it, like there's
Yeah.
behind all of the pomp and circumstance, there's
Mm-hmm.
truth. And if we can touch that truth,
Yeah.
and I was talking earlier about the idea of like living in a way that is more reasonable. And like
Yes.
I talked about Wim Hof. Wim Hof doesn't even ask the cold to change for him.
Mm.
He doesn't expect anything in the world to change for him, so he changes his physiology so that he can allow the cold to be cold, and
Yes.
he doesn't have
That's
to change for
amazing.
it. Like he will change himself to deal with cold, and like there are people out here in the world that can't even change themselves to get over being angry at their neighbor.
Right.
You know,
Get off my lawn.
right? Like really, like this motherfucker's out here like changing his entire physiology so that
Yeah.
cold is no longer a problem, and we can't get over like the next presidential election. Like, are we
Right.
really? Is that is
Yeah.
this is this is this
Right.
how is this how small you are going to make yourself? So let's go
Right.
ahead and find a number between 1 and 9.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was seeing before I came on here 16.
Wonderful. So 16 is entitled Stillness and Integration. Being empty of mind is of the utmost importance, and it is to be guarded with fervor. We have all been we have all seen states of action arise, and always beyond it returns stillness. When any state of action is complete, it naturally returns to stillness. This allows integration of what arose from action, which is the natural cycle of maturation. If stillness and integration cannot be achieved, constant action will lead to anxiety and wild movements. Yielding to stillness makes one impartial, and all particular things fall away. Then, when it is time to die, one can be impartial to that as well.
Yeah. Well, had a interesting conversation here on Wisdom a few days ago. It was at night with a woman named Chris. I'm not sure her last name, with a K. And she was talking about how time is God. And I was like, interesting. So I had a conversation with her, and I thought about, First Corinthians, where it talks about love is patient, love is kind, right? And if God is time, and it is a stillness and a patience that's involved to actually understand love and truth and to grow, it is that patience. It is as we get closer to the stillness, right, and the pause, that allows the growth to kind of grow from, just like you said, the movement comes from the stillness. And so this is just what came through for me, if we allow ourselves to be in the stillness and be in the patience, the ultimate patience, we'll never get to zero time. in our minds per se, but we can get toward it. And when we get toward it, that's when we fuel that flow with what it needs, just be more what it was meant to be. That was just my thought that came through.
Yeah. This for me, this chapter really kind of talks about that idea of like, look, if you're going to do something, make sure everything that you do, um, allow yourself to be still after every movement, because
Mm,
that stillness is
yeah.
going to help integrate. You don't know what's happening. Everyone wants to tell me why. Everyone wants to tell me why they feel a certain way. I'm sad because, I'm angry because, I this happened because. And it's like, really, you don't fucking know. Like, the sadness is a feeling that engenders a huge range of emotional cocktails that we're going to give ourselves. And we don't
Hmm.
really know if sadness is probably even the right word to use. It's the word that we use, but
Hmm.
might not be the word that you use. So when I say sad, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Right.
And then when like we're always trying to identify these things. And then that's what happens when things happen, right? Like, so if I go and someone breaks up with me, I'm angry because, well, this action happened. Am I going to allow myself to be still and integrate what happened? Or am I going to identify it as something? Am I going to hone in and identify it and what that ends up leading to? Like, so if stillness and integration, integrating what happened during an active state, cannot be achieved, constant action will lead to anxiety and wild movements. This is you responding and reacting.
100%.
You start reacting to things like,
Yeah.
oh, this, now I'm going to solidify my understanding of relationships. I'm going to I'm going to put everything in a box, and every one of those boxes has to stay in in order so that I can understand the world. But that is not what the first line is expressing. Being empty of mind is of the utmost importance, and it is to be guarded with fervor.
Oh, I love that line so much. Yeah.
And the thing is the less stillness, and it's not stillness and understanding, it's stillness and
Mm,
integration.
yeah.
You be still, let your body integrate what was learned. Don't define it.
Yes.
Don't go out
Judge
trying
it.
to, because then every definition utilizes the mind, and so your mind isn't empty.
Right. Wow.
It continues to say, we have all seen states of action arise, and always beyond it returns stillness. When any state of action is complete, it naturally returns to stillness. This allows integration of what arose from action, which is the natural cycle of maturation. This is the natural cycle of how we mature.
Well,
We do
death
something and then we're
death
still.
is immediately returning you to stillness, right?
Right, right. That's the final stillness. And
Yeah.
and there's still integration beyond that, right? Your soul
Uh-huh.
begins to integrate that life.
Yeah.
And and so, but throughout your life, every day, even after doing Tao of the Day, I sit and I just breathe for a moment.
Mhm.
That stillness to allow what just happened to integrate without me having to define what that integration is going to be or what I learned. That's the worst, trying to tell, oh, this is what I learned. This is just like people telling me, I'm upset because I learned this. You don't know what you learned. You'll never know what you learned. I always was confused when I came home at school and people would ask me, what did you learn today at school? It's like, I don't fucking know. I don't remember learning anything, to be quite honest. You know,
Yeah.
when kids can answer that, I'm always confused. My sister asks her kids that. What'd you learn today? I'm like, what the hell? Like, I remember being a kid, that was a stressful question because I couldn't answer it.
Well, that's because we don't make schools for the student. We make the students for the school, or we try to make the students fit the school. And the problem is it doesn't work for everybody. It really
Right.
doesn't.
Yeah. We in the words that I talk about it in this category, I say we force them to live under the influence. Right.
Yeah. Do
Parents,
it do
children
it
live
our
under the
way.
influence of their parents, then their
Yep.
teachers and schools and all of that stuff. It's like we are just trying to make it. We're trying to make our job easier by taking you away from yourself.
Oh my God, that's so well said. That
Yeah.
is so well said. Well, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank
And
you.
it's always great to. I don't know. What do we have, a like quarterly membership with you? I think, but it's always worth it, and I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Anytime. Have a good one. I'm gonna finish reading this number 16 because the end of this is really pretty powerful. So I'll go ahead and read the whole thing again. Being empty of mind. This is such an important line. Being empty of mind is of the utmost importance, and it is to be guarded with fervor. When I wrote that, it was really important for me to have this juxtaposition of like empty of mind, and you have to defend this fucking thing, this empty mind. And in order to defend your empty mind, you have to you have to be full of thought, kind of, right? And so like there is this paradox in this first line of like it has to be guarded, and if you're guarding it, that means you're not empty of mind. And this was intentionally paradoxical when I wrote it, when I decided that this was how I wanted to express this, because I want people to recognize that you being empty of mind is not something that is is just going to happen, because your body and your mind, and so being embodied as well, being in once your body and mind grasp onto something like Netflix, it's going to want to just not be empty. It's going to want to be filled. The mind is a hungry ghost, and it just wants to absorb and keep absorbing and get more and more and more. Have you ever just went to YouTube and said, okay, I'm only going to watch one video? Or have you ever gone somewhere and just been like, okay, this is enough, right? It gets that way, but usually when it gets that way, we're pretty enraged already in some way or form. I know that's what happens to me. I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. Put it away, you know? Because being empty of mind is of the utmost importance and is to be guarded with fervor. We all have seen states of action arise, and always beyond it returns stillness. So no matter what, right? Like you guard your mind with your mind, and then what happens? It returns to stillness. And then okay, it's always back and forth. And even in meditation, oh, my mind wandered, back to stillness. My mind wandered, back. My body wandered, back stillness. When any state of action is complete, it naturally returns to stillness. It allows integration of what is arose from action, which is the natural cycle of maturation. You are going to mature every day a little bit, action to stillness. Now, if you don't allow, I mean, when we talk about arrested development, not the show, but the experience of having arrested development, we can often find people who, at a young age, like got caught up either in drugs or alcohol or having children or whatever. And then there's this arrested development because there is very little they can do to be still. Their stillness is such a scary thing for them, or isn't afforded to them for whatever reason, that they don't get to mature. They don't get to mature beyond that until stillness can be integrated again. If stillness and integration cannot be achieved, constant action will lead to anxiety and wild movement. Young parents experience this. People that use drugs and alcohol experience this. Not, of course, across the board, but people who abuse drugs and alcohol experience this. Yielding to stillness makes one impartial. When you can just be like, all right, I don't care. As Julia and I talk about, like, I don't care. Like, let this happen. Yielding to stillness makes one impartial, and all particular things fall away. Like the particular things fall away. Like just any particular thing. I don't want to like point anything out. Like this thing that is happening now, that's a particular thing, whatever that is. You're listening to this particular thing, yada, yada, yada. That falls away. And then when it is time to die, one can be impartial to that as well. One of the particular things that is going to fall away is you, right? You as the body, you as the mind. And when you can fall away, then dying's not all that bad, because you know you are greater than this body. And it's it's odd to me when people talk about fear of death, because I remember when I went in with my MS, I was like, oh, I might be dying. Okay. Thought I had a stroke or something, and then I was like, oh, I might be dying. Okay, that's cool. But then I found out that I was going to be able to walk, and then that was a shot to the system. I was just like, oh hell, I was okay with dying. I wasn't so okay with not being able to walk, and then I realized that I had judgments, or I had fear of not being able to walk because of things that I was holding on to, about people who were crippled or whatever, and the fear of that, and realizing that I had to open my heart even more to the possibility of being crippled, open my mind, open my heart to the possibility of being, like, I ask people a lot, like sometimes not a lot, I suppose. I've done it a handful of times. People talk to me about how happy they are, and they can do anything. I say, okay, what if you lost your legs? And they're like, what? It's like, yeah. Would you be able to lose your legs and be just as happy as you are today? And that's a real shocker, because we take for granted so many things. We take for granted that we have arms and legs, but if we became a quadriplegic overnight, would your mind be strong enough to overcome that? Because it is, just intrinsically. But would you go into victim mode and not be able to get out of that, and then for the rest of your life be a victim to your circumstance? And that's a tough question. It's hard but that's where stillness, like, you lose your legs, be still. Don't get caught up in wild movements. Don't get caught up in anxiety. No, that's okay. Let's be still here now. I used to tell people all the time, like I wear a helmet when I ride my motorcycle. I'm like, look, this is the only thing that needs to survive. If I lose my arms or legs, or I break every bone in my body, my head is intact. I can get over this. Mental clarity, thinking clearly, thinking clearly, and being able to, be positive, sure, but it's not that like fake positive. Be like, no, like I'm God, and this is the experience that I get to experience. Let's embrace it, whatever that experience is. All right. If anybody has a number between 1 and 81, I'd love to hear from you. Julie came up for 63, and Daryl had 16. We talked about stillness and integration. And 63 was problems are no problem, or something of that nature. 63, problems are no problem. That was the exact title of it. Yeah, beautiful. So if anybody wants... don't run away from it. Julie says, don't run away from it. So yeah, we don't want to run away from, we do not want to run away from the experiences that we're having, or death. We want to be able to embrace it, know that, I forget what, I think it was, might have been Harry Potter, when they talked about that story of, walking hand in hand with death. And that's a big deal. When we can walk hand in hand with death, when we can see that we are death as well as life, then that's when we can really embrace who we are. So stillness, like both of these, 63 and 16, talked about stillness. directly, you know. Stillness and Integration in 16 and in 63, with no desire to achieve it, her stillness guides her, making subtle movements the difficult become easy. If we look at these two together, you know, like no desire to achieve greatness, what she's doing is maturing moment to moment and tackling challenges and problems from moment to moment. So problems become no problem for her because she has been able to mature through the process of stillness and integration. So that's a nice way of kind of bringing those two together. Daryl, thank you. And Julie, thank you so much. Love you guys. And if you are interested, if you guys benefit from the work I do here on Wisdom, if you guys benefit from the work I do with the Tao, please consider sending a tip my way through Venmo at martinjohn_Garcia. Until next time, keep recovering yourself.